Let's start. So first thing, what are animals, right? So animals, as you know, they are going to be multicellular, heterotrophic, without cell wall and without chlorophyll. So basically what they are is, they are actually eukaryotic cells, right? Eukaryotic means what? They are going to have the features of a eukaryotic cell, including the presence of a well-developed nucleus and the nuclear membrane, along with all the features that you have learned, which is part of the eukaryotic cell. So here they are multicellular, they're heterotrophic. That means they are dependent on the other organisms, on the autotrophic organisms for their food requirements. And again, they are going to have no cell wall. So here what we have, we do have only the cell membrane, okay, or the plasma membrane. That's the covering, but there is no cell wall in this case. And they do not have chlorophyll, as they are non photosynthetic, right? They are not photosynthetic, and because of that, they are simply not requiring any sort of chlorophyll or the chloroplast that we have seen in case of the plants. Now, what are the different phyla in case of kingdom Animalia? There are different ways of grouping it, but we are going to go with this. So we are going to have the phylum Porifera, Nidaria, Ctenophora, Platyhelminthes, Esculminthes, Annelids or Annelida. Then the largest phylum Arthropoda or the Insecta. Then you have the mollusks or Mollusca, Echinodermata, Hemichordata, and Chordata. Again, under Chordata, you have different groups that we will be seeing later on. So there are certain other names for these also that you will be anyway learning. So what is the basis of classification of these organisms? So here we have the level of organization. That is, you are going to have the body, body organization in the cellular level or tissue level, organ system level. Next, you have the symmetry of the body. We'll talk about what is symmetry or mirror image. We'll talk about that in a minute, radial or bilateral symmetry. Then you are going to have the germinal layers or the embryonic layer. So we call it diploblastic or triploblastic. We will understand that also. Now, next you have the coelom. That is the body cavity, which we talk about the coelomate, pseudocoelomate or acoelomate organisms. Then you are going to have the segmentation, also known as metamerism. That means, to give you an example, you have seen earthworm and you see different segments, different areas which are segmented. So that kind of segmentation, that also forms a basis for the classification. Not only that, even in other organisms there are segmentation, but the segmentation are simply different. For example, you have the head, abdomen, head, thorax, and the abdomen. So the segmentation is different, but other organisms also have it. We'll talk about that. And finally, the notochord. What are notochords? We will see that in a minute. So when we talk about the basis of classification, based on the organization of the cells or organization level, animals are or can be grouped into 4 different levels. Of course, as I said, we are going to have the cellular level, a single cell, or basically multiple cells, but again, they're not going to form any sort of tissue. They're not going to be organized to function as a tissue. So you have the cellular level of organization. Next up, you have the tissue level of organization. When you talk about tissue level of organization, different type of tissues will be involved. Then you have the organ level of organization, and then organ system level of organization. So an animal that we are talking about can be categorized or can be having any 4 of these levels of organization. Typically what happens, as we go from the simple ones, from the poriferans all the way to chordates, the complexity increases. Right. So similarly, if the complexity increases, the body organization also goes from the most simple, right, that is the poriferans, to the most complex, that is chordates. So what happens, as the complexity increases, the level of organization also becomes more and more complex. It goes from cellular all the way to the organ system level of organization. So to give you a few examples of that, you're going to have the porifera. Cells are arranged as loose cell aggregates. Now many might confuse this, that sir, number of cells are there, they're multicellular, why can't we consider that as tissue? The reason we do not consider this as tissue level organization, because the tissue definition of the tissue is, if a group of cells, they're going to organize themselves and they're going to function as a unit, they perform a particular function. But here that does not happen. So here the cells act independently, individually, and they are arranged as a loose cell aggregate in case of poriferans. Now when we go to the Cnidarians or the Ctenophora, which is the next phylums in the classification system, we're going to have the tissue level organization, where we are seeing cells are organized into tissue. And as you go from there to organ levels, right, here you are going to get the organs, not only the tissue. Along with the tissue, we get the organs. And higher animals, for example, the platyhelminthes to the chordates. And in higher organisms like the, let's say mammals, what we are going to have the organ system level of organization, in which we are going to have organs that are part of an organ system, right? And each of the organ system, they perform a particular physiological role. For example, nutrition, respiration, right? They have a particular physiological role, and this physiological role is not only by one organ, instead it is by the entire organ system. That you have to keep in mind. Now next one, we are going to have the image here. You can see incomplete digestive system in case of Hydra and Planaria, and complete digestive system in case of roundworm. So here this also is a sort of level of basis for the classification. For example, in case of certain organisms, as you can see here, it is going to be incomplete for the digestive system. That is, there is single opening, but both for the intake and removal of the waste food materials. That is, both mouth and anus is going to have a single opening. Now you have the example of Cnidaria and the Platyhelminthes. Now when we talk about complete digestive system, there are going to be two openings, one each for the mouth and the anus. So two separate. In that case, it is called complete digestive system. Now circulatory system can also be open or it can be closed. Now in open circulatory system, the organism's organs are going to be bathed in the blood, or hemolymph we call it. So there is no blood vessel, the blood vessels, there is no proper circulatory system as you see in case of higher organisms, where each organs are supplied with the blood vessels or blood capillaries that is going to take care of the transportation and also the oxygen and CO2 intake and removal. So in the case of open circulatory system, in case of lower organisms, these are absent. That is, you don't have a closed circulatory system. So here entire organs are going to be present basically on the body fluid called the hemolymph, for example. Now second up, the basis of a classification is going to be symmetry, right? So what's symmetry? Let's understand that. So as you can see here, right, as you can see here, if you just see the image, you will understand. So here what we're going to have is two images. On the left, you're going to have something called asymmetric, and on the right it is called symmetric. So here if I see, it is my left side and it is my right side. So here the left and the right side, both of these are not the same. They're different, right? They're not the mirror image. But instead, if I see the next image, when I compare the left and right, what I see mirror image. Right? What I see here, the mirror image. So when an organism that can be cut into two equal halves from one particular plane, we call that as symmetric. Now, if the organism can be cut in a single plane, only one plane, then it is called bilateral symmetry. Right? Bi means two, bilateral symmetry. From a single plane, we are going to have a mirror image, left and right. Now, when the organism cannot be, have a mirror image, we cannot cut the organism into two equal halves. In that case, we call it asymmetric. There is no symmetry, because here what you see, the left side is one kind of appearance, and the right side is having in a different type of appearance. So here there is no symmetry. There is no mirror image form. So you see, most of the poriferans and the snails, they are not symmetric. And in case of symmetry, as I said, it can be divided into similar parts. So there are two types again. So if the organism can be divided into two equal halves from a single plane, then it is called bilateral symmetry. It is from one plane. But when we talk about radial symmetry, what we are saying is, if the organism can be cut into two equal halves from more than one plane, right? So here we are going to have multiple plane or more than one plane. So when the organism can be divided into two equal halves from more than one plane, we call that as radial symmetry. Now, if you see in the image here, right side, you see the bilateral symmetry here. The organism can be divided into a left and a right side. Here's the left and the right side. But here, you can divide the organism from this plane and also from this particular plane. So here and here, both the planes. So similarly, here also this round flower vase can be divided into two equal halves from multiple planes. Even I can have it here or here. So any plane that I'm showing you, if I can cut this organism like this, right? So any plane that I'm going to talk about, any plane that I want, I can cut the organism and still I will get basically radial symmetry, basically symmetry. So in that case, what I'm saying, I'm going to call it as radial symmetry. From the central axis, right? This is central axis. This is central axis, the center. So based on the central axis, from any plane if I cut, I'm going to get a symmetry. I'm going to get two equal halves. In that case, I call it radial symmetry. And if it is a single limited plane, then I'm going to call it bilateral symmetry. So here, radial symmetry, you have some of the porifers, Cnidaria, Ctenophora, Echinodermata, and they are adults again. So Echinodermata, the larval forms are going to be bilaterally symmetrical. So as we go again, if I give you a perspective, as we go from the most simple organism to more complex organism, what happens is, first we have the asymmetric, okay, then you have the radial, and then we have the bilateral. So the simple organisms typically have the asymmetric ones, and then little bit advanced they have the radial symmetry, and as we go to higher organisms, are going to have the bilateral symmetry. So bilateral symmetry is an advanced feature. Okay, are you able to understand, your students?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So here it is a different image talking about the same thing. Another example that is from your textbook they have taken. You can see. So here you are going to have the central axis, and the organism can be cut into multiple. This is a line going through the central axis. Let's say this line also goes to the central axis. So based on this central axis, I can have multiple planes from which I can divide the organism and still get a symmetry. So the body of bilateral symmetrical animal has typically a dorsal. Understand this. Dorsal, we had talked about this in the previous class also. Very important. Dorsal means upper side. So this area, this side. So this area is going to be dorsal. And ventral means it is the belly side, or you can call it the abdominal or belly side. That is called ventral. Ventral is the lower side. Now left and right, that is going to be lateral sides, and anterior, right? This is going to be anterior, that is the head region, and a posterior, that is going to be the tail region. So in organism that is going to show bilateral symmetry, they will have all of these different sides. So dorsal, ventral, lateral, and anterior and posterior sides. Very important. Many people confuse here. So you have to find your own ways to understand and remember this. Now we're coming to up the third point of classification, or basis of classification, that is the germinal layer. Okay, just a second. It is called the germinal layers. Now let's understand what germ layers are first. Now these are the germ layers. These are the structures, or these are the layers from which we are going to get the body organs. Right? These structures give the different body organs. For example, we are going to have the endoderm, ectoderm, and endoderm, ectoderm, mesoderm. So these are different type of layers that will give rise to the organs in future. So depending on the layers in the embryo stage, right, you can see here, this is a blastocele, blastocele and blastula stage, for example. So your zygote actually forms by the fusion of male and female gamete. It develops into these different stages. Blastula stage with the blastocele, and slowly what happens? It forms a structure called gastrula, and the gastrula has the different germ layers: mesoderm, ectoderm, and endoderm. These are the three germ layers, and these basically give rise to the organs. They develop into the organs. So you can see that based on the number of the germ layers, whether we're going to have 2 or 3, we can have 2 types of organisms or animals. So that can be diploblastic, or it can be triploblastic. Diploblastic means it will have 2 proper layers, and triploblastic will have 3 proper layers, as you can see here. So On the outer side, what you see is the ectoderm, right? And on the inside, what you see is the endoderm. And in case of a diploblastic organism, diploblastic animal, what you see in the center of these two, you see a undifferentiated structure, and that is called mesoglia. So mesoglia is part of diploblastic organism or diploblastic animal. Now, what about triploblastic? In triploblastic, instead of the mesoglia, we have a well differentiated, well developed, this germ layer, and that is called the mesoderm. So when we talk about the triploblastic, what are the three layers we have? Ectoderm, endoderm, and the mesoderm, which is in between. When we talk about diploblastic organism, we are talking about ectoderm, and in the center you are going to have the mesoglia instead of mesoderm, and we are going to have the endoderm. So that's the main difference between the germinal layers. So again, a comparison between the two, as you can see here, three layers, right? So ectoderm, mesoglia, and endoderm in case of diploblastic organism, and you see this in case of cnidarians and the ctenophora. And when we talk about the triploblastic organisms, we see in case of platyhelminthes and all the way up to the chordates, right? So that's the main difference between the diploblastic and triploblastic. That forms again a basis for the classification of the organisms. Now what we have, we are going to have the coelom, right? What is coelom? Coelom is body cavity. So to give you a basic idea what body cavity means is, you are going to have the gut wall, right? This is our gut wall or alimentary canal wall. Now this is our body wall, this area, right? So the space in between, right? The space in between, that space is called the coelom. And that is called the coelom or the body cavity. Very simple. The word body cavity, simple. So it is the cavity lined by the mesoderm, and it is seen between the body wall and the gut wall. So body wall is the layer outside, and the gut wall is the alimentary canal, because alimentary canal is difficultly developed from the innermost germ layer. So coelom separates the muscles of the gut and the body wall, and based on that coelom, we can have three different types of organisms. So that can be acoelomate, pseudocoelomate, and coelomate. So acoelomate organisms do not have any sort of body cavity. Pseudocoelomate, partial we can say it, and coelomate organisms have the body cavity. Now the question is, why do organs or why do organisms have the body cavity, and what kind of role they have when we talk about the body cavity and the organism, body organization. So here you have to understand that if an organism is going to be acoelomate, there is no organ or organ system. But when an organism is going to have coelomate structure, coelomate body cavity, true body cavity, in that case, the organs are going to be suspended in the body cavity. Typically, all organs, as you can see, they are present in the body cavity only. So, if an organism is going to be exhibiting body organ system or organ system level of classification or body organization, they will definitely have the coelomate structure. Otherwise, it is simply not possible. Right. So let's compare these. Acoelomate, there is no coelom, right? So as you can see here, there is all, right? The outer layer is going to be what? The three germ layers are there, and there is no cavity in here. So the space between body wall and digestive cavity is filled with matrix or parenchyma. The porifera to platyhelminthes have that. Now, when we talk about pseudocoelom or false coelom, what we have is there is a body cavity, but it is not aligned by mesoderm, and mesoderm here is scattered pouches. You have the esculments, and then you have the true coelom or true body cavity you see in case of the coelomate organisms, and in that what you see here, you are going to have a coelom that is going to arise from the mesoderm, and coelom is aligned with peritoneal layers, and it is filled with coelomic fluid, and that is a place where the organs can be placed. And you see this in case of the annelids all the way to the chordates or the higher organisms, including the human beings. So that's the acoelomate, pseudocoelomate, and coelomate organisms with the pictures there. Now again, a different image that has been taken to again put forward the same point. As you can see here, if an organism, acoelomate organism, is cut and opened up, you see that this particular place, this is the endoderm is going to give rise to the gut or the innermost layer, and the ectoderm is going to give rise to the outer layer. So the middle layer, right, the tissue, it is going to be filled with tissue filled region, but you don't have any sort of space for the organs to form. In case of pseudocoelom, what you have is you're going to have the body covering from the ectoderm. You can see this particular blue layer, right? And you're going to have the digestive tract from the innermost or in the endoderm, and you are seeing a muscle layer from the mesoderm. But here what you see in case of true coelomate or coelomate organism, or true organisms having the true body cavity or true coelom, right? You're going to have the digestive tract from the endoderm, you're going to have the ectoderm, and also you're going to have the tissue layer lining the coelom, and that will allow the suspending of the internal organs that is going to develop in the mesoderm. So with that body cavity, the organs are placed. So I hope you're clear with that on the coelom. Right, anyway, so it is going to accommodate the visceral organs. As we talked about, visceral means what? The internal organs, right? Delicate internal organs. They are called visceral organs. So all the visceral organs are placed there, as we talked about. So all of these are present in the body cavity. And the coelomic fluid reduces the friction between the visceral organs. So that is going to act like a system to prevent the damage to the internal organs, and also acts as a shock absorber. So that's the function of the coelom. So are you clear up to now, dear students?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Let's continue.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so we have two more. So next one, we are going to have the metamerism, or if you remember, we had talked about the term segmentation. Is the body divided into different segments? That's again can be a criteria for the classification. So here what we have is we are going to have the for example the earthworm, and you can see here each of this part is one segment. Each of these is one segment, right? And that is why it is called the segmentation in the organism. And another thing that you have to keep in mind is even the external segmentation is also going to correlate with internal segmentation. So segmentation here in case of earthworm is present on the external side as well as internal side. And because it is going to be segmented both on the outside and on the inside, it is called the metamers, or segmentation is called metameric segmentation, or also called as metamerism, right? So here what happens externally as well as internally. So you see this in case of earthworms that belong to annelids, and the segmentation is also seen in case of arthropods. But in arthropods, we don't have this metameric segmentation. Instead, in the insects, the body is typically divided into head, thorax, and the abdomen. These are major regions of the arthropods. Now we are going to have the last one, the notochords, right? Now notochord is a very important feature that we see in an organism, and typically that is on the chordates. Now it is mesodermally derived. It is derived from the mesoderm, right? That is the first thing that you have to keep in mind. And it is placed on the dorsal side. Dorsal means, can anybody tell me, it is the back, it is the lower portion of the upper portion?
Upper person, sir.
Right.
Portion.
Yes, very good. That is the back side or the upper portion. So it is going to be present on the dorsal side during development in some of the animals. Now, animals with notochords are called chordates. Very important. So it is a defining feature. It is an important feature for the chordates. And those which are not having a notochord, they are called the non-chordates. Okay, that is a defining feature. So why it is so important, we will see that when we talk about the groups with the notochord, that time you will appreciate why this again is a criteria for the classification to go on. So that's all the different criteria that has been used for classification to students. I hope you are clear on those things. Any doubts on this till now?
No, sir.
Okay. So we do have 10 minutes more. So I'll just go about explaining you a few more concepts here. So let's understand and see what the animal kingdom is after understanding some of the basics here. So again, on the left, what I have the different phylums, And here I have the level of organization, the germ layer, symmetry, and the coelom. So when we talk about the poriferans, of course, is the most simple one. So it is going to have the cellular level of organization. There is no germ layers, and you are going to have the asymmetric or radial type of symmetry, depending on the organism. Now the coelom is here is going to be acoelomate. Now Cnidaria and Ctenophora, what you have going to have is tissue level of organization, diploblastic, radial symmetry, and acoelomate. Now platyhelminthes, organ and organ system, triploblastic, bilateral, acoelomate. Esculminthes, organ system, triploblastic, bilateral, and pseudocoelomate. And then annelids, arthropod, mollusks, echinoderm, and hemichordates, and of course the chordates, they are all going to have the organ system and triploblastic, bilateral, and coelomate. So point of telling you is this, is that when we talk about the criteria for classification, there are certain features. These are all general features, but again, there are certain features which are going to be found in the primitive organisms or the lower organisms, and there are some which are going to be found in the higher organisms. So if you can understand that, already I just said, when we talk about the level of organization, the cellular organization is going to be the primitive feature, right? And the organ system is going to be the advanced feature. Similarly, when we talk about the germ layer, diploblastic or triploblastic, diploblastic is going to be the primitive feature and triploblastic is going to be the advanced feature. Similarly, symmetry, the primitive is going to be radial symmetry, and as you go up, it is going to be the bilateral symmetry, that is again going to be an advanced feature. Right? Again, we are going to coelomate, coelom, have presence of the body cavity is going to be again a proper advanced feature, and not having that is going to be a primitive feature. And again, you can see in between what we have, we do have a pseudocoelomate, which is between the coelom and the acoelomate and the coelomate organisms. So that's all the basic idea that you all need to have to actually continue the first phylum that we will start tomorrow itself. Not today. Tomorrow, today we are going to end with this, and tomorrow we will continue with this particular phylum. We have all the different phylums, as you can see on this screen. We will continue with those.